Hey everybody, Riot Mort here, and it is time for another patch rundown. Another 2 weeks have passed, and we are on to the second patch. And here we go. Last patch, not one of the best patches out there. It was okay, but clearly sort of dominated by some reroll comps and a certain augment that probably should have gone. So some changes to fix here. And we are taking some big strides at kind of changing the meta a bit. So if you're one of those players that likes the meta changing, this is going to be the patch for you. Things are going to be changing. So let's dive right in and talk about what's happening. First off, player damage. This is a system that's been pretty archaic, pretty confusing for a lot of our players. It's really weird how the units left alive were doing 2 damage until the third one, then it's 1 damage. So we're finally simplifying player damage. Player damage is now going to be +1 for every surviving unit. That's it. Simple. +1 for every surviving unit. So if you know the base, if the base is 2, you can go 2, 3, 4, 5, easy. It'll be a very simple system. Now, to compensate, the base damage went up by 2 at every stage. So base at stage 2 went from 0 to 2. You can add 2. I don't need to math this all out for you. What this generally means for the game, though, is that if you were losing by 1, you're going to take some more player damage. If you're losing by 2, it'll be the same. And if you're losing by 3 or more, you're actually taking less damage. So there will be less player damage going around for really bad losses. So if you're getting your butt kicked, it won't hurt quite as bad. We'll see how that goes. It might be a little less player damage. We'll see. But yeah, Fortune, definitely one of the benefactors of this. We'll see how it goes. But we do need to do this in the long run just to simplify the system. This has been a long time coming. And so if we have to add more base damage to stage 4 and 5 later, we will. But for now, simple systems are good. The other thing here, streaks. We've heard your feedback, and we agree. The loss of 2 streaks, sad. So now if you 2 streak, you get a gold. Great. It doesn't matter if you win or loss streak, you get a gold. It'll be sweet. The other thing is, we haven't really been happy with how easy it is to 3-star 3 costs, and we don't want to have to nerf them all into oblivion, so we are making them a little harder to hit at level 7. Level 7, the odds are going down from 40% to 36%, compensated in the 1 and 2 cost space. So level 7 should be a little harder. Again, our choice is make it harder to hit or nerf them all, and we went with harder to hit here. So level 7 gets a bit of a nerf. Cool. On the encounter side, huge list of changes here. No, just kidding. There was the Morgana one where it was you could either upgrade the next 2 cost you buy or get gold. The answer was 100% of the time 10 gold. We'd rather, have to make a choice. So that goes down to 7 gold. It's still probably 7 gold most of the time, but if you want a 2 cost, you could go here. Cool. This encounter should be a little less obvious. So, all right, on the trait side, Dragon Lord 4 and 5 looking pretty strong. Honestly, got out pretty lightly with the nerfs here, but 4 does 2% less true damage. 5 does 3% less true damage here. 4 and 5 Dragon Lord are still great. The stun's the value anyway. So, but this should lower the peak of something like the 5 Dragon Lord, Xayah, Kaisa comp, stuff like that. Exalted. We love Exalted. It's a really fun trait. It's one of the cool things of this set. Hasn't really played out as like a super strong trait. For now, the base damage is going up 1%. And then the 5 Exalted is getting buffed from 2.5 per level to 3 per level. Hopefully makes this a little more playable. If it doesn't, we'll add even more from there. I don't know. I think 5 will need a little more. We'll see. But there you go. Faded. 45% Omnivamp is a lot of Omnivamp. A little too much Omnivamp, in fact. And so watching Aphelios 3 heal to full was a lot. So we're going to lower that down to 36%. 12% base for the set Omnivamp. So there you go. And then Syndra was kind of one that you never really picked. So we're buffing her a little bit. She gets 1% more base. So if you want to make Syndra your faded, should be more of an option now. Should be a lot less, always thresh and set now. So hopefully some more options there. Fortune. Fortune is getting a small nerf here. The player damage changes. We knew Fortune would be really, really good. So at the very least, Fortune 5 is going to be less healing. Fortune 5s won't be quite as much of an instant win with 3 player health per turn. It'll go down to 2. 3 Fortune will still be just as good, though, so not going to change much here. Heavenly. Heavenly gets a small nerf at 7. Heavenly's something we kind of have our eye on for future updates. But for now, we just wanted to lower 7 a teeny tiny bit. Storyweaver. 3 Storyweaver is just a little too good in the early game. 3 Storyweaver is probably the strongest opener you can get. Lowering the power of that a bit. Hopefully next patch we get some power back in 5 and 7. But for now, 3 Storyweavers, kind of just a free stage 2. So lowering the power of that KL a little. To be honest, it's still a powerful thing, but not a big deal. Ink Shadow. Ink Shadow is finally in a good spot here. Just a couple of the items are a little off now. We're glad that 7 Ink Shadow is a playable trait. Tattoo of Bombardment coming down a little bit. Tattoo of Protection, still the best one after all the buffs, coming down a bit. Tattoo of Toxin ended up being an overbuff here, so this is going back down to the 33% it was. And then Tattoo of Vitality was still actually bad, so that one gets buffed. Again, trying to get these tattoos all really, really closely balanced with each other. So that should help Ink Shadow. Porcelain. 6 Porcelain, you need 2 emblems and a 5 cost. It's supposed to be powerful. It's a little too powerful. It's a little, like, comparable to 9 Umbral powerful. That's a little much. So this is getting nerfed, and both the attack speed and damage reduction. Small thing. Should still be very good. And then Umbral, speaking of which, 6 Umbral gets the execute raised up 2%. Should be a little better. And then 9 Umbral, another 5%. So hopefully that helps 6 and 9 Umbral a little bit. So there you go. All right, champions. Garen, probably the weakest one cost, being propped up by Storyweaver. And you're going to see this a lot. Pretty much all the Storyweaver champs are very weak. They're going to get some buffs. So this should also help the Garen hero augment. So Garen's shield now gets bigger. 3-star, even bigger. Cool. Gnar, this is an interesting buff. This is a buff. Basically, to get to max stacks, instead of 50, it's only going to take 25. And the base is the same. Now, he is getting nerfed from the Titans nerf we'll talk about later, but Gnar should be able to cap out better. If you're looking for a reroll comp to play next patch, Gnar should still be pretty solid here, especially if you get mulched early. I imagine he'll be pretty solid still. Riven, another example of a Storyweaver champion that's struggling. So Riven gets 5 base AD and a little bit more heal. Do I think this is going to make Riven carry meta? No, but maybe you play her as an early game item holder or something. But there should be some more options here and helps the Storyweavers a bit. Now you might be going, but Mort, you just said Storyweaver openers are really good. Yep, this is part of the balance problem of Storyweaver, right? Is like we want Riven carry to be a thing, but Storyweaver openers are strong. This is going to be a tough thing for us to balance here, but summon traits are summon traits, you know? We got to do it. All right, Senna. Senna gets a buff and a nerf here. If you've ever watched me stream, you know that when I play Senna, she misses a lot, and it drives me nuts, and I slam my headset. No, I'm just kidding. We fixed that. The ability will now more reliably hit targets if her current target dies during the cast windup. So that's great. But to compensate, Senna's also very strong. She's doing well in Ghostly. She's one of the best reroll comps in Ink Shadow. So her spell will hit a little less hard and scale off AP a little less. So honestly, I think she'll be about the same. Maybe even a little buffed. We'll see. But that reliability will help quite a bit. Zyra, very small buff for Zyra. Again, another Storyweaver champion struggling. You don't see a lot of Zyra carries. Zyra gets a very small spell damage buff, and the plant missile speed has been sped up. So those missiles will actually hit quicker and maybe actually hit targets before they fizzle. So good stuff. Elune. Elune is another champion that hasn't really been meta much at all. We haven't seen a ton of Invoker out there. If you can 3-star her, she's okay. But so it gets pretty sizable buff here, going from 360 to 380 base. Cool. To no surprise, Yone is a very strong champion and is getting nerfed. Yone's attack speed going from 0.9 to 0.85. This is also in addition to the Titans nerf, so hopefully this puts Yone in a better spot. Volibear, very light nerf. Again, he's going to get hit by the Titans nerf as well, but just going to be casting a little less often here. He's right now kind of the backbone of Ink Shadow and Duelist, so just gets a small nerf. Okay, now we move into 4-cost space, and you're going to see a lot of changes here, and I talked about this on my Twitter, but basically what we didn't like is the relationship between 3-star 3 costs and 2-star 4 costs. The gap between them was too wide, especially on the defensive side. So what we've chosen to do is go through all the 4 costs and give them all a durability buff. So all the 4 costs are getting quite a bit more durable. They still are not going to be quite as high of a cap as like a 3-star 3 cost, but especially if you see an early, 1-star 4 cost, you should be more excited because that base health will help them out quite a bit. So let's go over that. Annie, 200 more base health. And remember, this is 200 base at 2-star. That's going to be 1.8 times 200, so 360 health. Cool. Ash gets 200 health. Also, Ash is getting a damage buff, that mana going from 25 out of 100 to 30 out of 90, so she should be able to cast more. Hopefully this puts her on the same page as someone like Kaisa. You can play Ash Sniper. She might need a little more after this, we'll see, but hopefully that helps. Galio is one that didn't need quite as much as everybody else, only gets 100 base HP. Galio was already pretty strong, didn't need to overbuff that, but there you go. Kaisa, yes, we know Kaisa is strong. Kaisa is benefiting from the 200 health as well. She's still a 4 cost. I understand she's meta, but we also lowered her attack speed. That is the nerf she gets to put her on the same plane as everybody else. This should be a fair nerf to Kaisa. Kayn, 200 health. Makes him, again, a lot more durable. Really good for these melee champions. Should be fine. Lee Sin, one of the bigger benefactors here. 250 health. That should make him quite a bit better. And 5 more AD. Hopefully this makes Lee Sin carry more of a possibility. Lilia, 200 more health. Great. And a small spell damage buff. Pretty sizable one, actually. 20% to the small orbs. So Lilia should be much more of a threat this patch. We know she hasn't really found her footing. I'm sure there's a deer joke in there somewhere. But Lilia should hopefully be a 4-cost carry that you can play. Morgana, same thing. Morgana, 200 health. More attack speed so she can cast quicker. Hopefully gets those chill platforms out there. Should be nice. Nautilus, this is another one that's making Mythic look real good. 200 health for Nautilus and 20 off his mana so he can cast more often. Nautilus should be the premier, CC tank in the game. Should be good stuff. Ornn, 200 more health. Silas, 200 more health. Syndra, 200 more health. So you can see 4 costs, they got more health. They're durable. It's great. 5 costs. With 5 costs, we went a little lighter. 5 costs are already pretty strong. Some of them getting a little bit of health, but we did do a pass on them to make sure they were fairly compensated compared to their 4 costs as well. So you can see here, Azir gets 100 health. It'd be weird if Azir had less health than Lilia. That'd be weird. Hui gets 100 health. Same thing. Aurelia already had plenty of health. Now, Aurelia does get a bit of a nerf here. This is a pretty big nerf. I've talked about it on stream where she was bugged. What she would do is she would auto-attack the 4 closest enemies, and then wherever her blades were, she would auto-attack the 4 closest enemies from that location. So that's how the blades would end up on the back line. Now she will actually auto-cast the 4 closest enemies. That's it. And then they're dead, and then she'll go to the next enemy. So she won't be able to skip the backline quite as much, but her spell can still hit backline. Her spell targeting has not changed, but this is less, free red buff onto the entire backline than before. So she is nerfed here. This is a nerf. Lysandra, 200 health. Rakan, 100 health. Xayah, 50 health. Again, these champions are strong. To be honest, 5 costs might still be a little strong. We'll see. But we can't have 5 costs with less health than 4 costs. That's weird. And it's mostly durability here, so it should help with fight pacing. Set, 100 health, and Udyr, 100 health. So there you go. All right, on the item side, because of this health change, we did want to change Giant Slayer to not just be free proc on everybody. So Giant Slayer and Demon Slayer get nerfed a bit. So they're not going to, hit everyone necessarily, but should be fine. That is a nerf. That is not the wrong color. It's definitely a nerf. And then Titan's Resolve. This is the big nerf here to Titan's Resolve. Its AP per stack is going from 2 to 1. What this means is when it's fully capped, you were getting 50 AP before. Now you only get 25. That's a lot less, right? So like a Titans BT Yone, who had 100 AP, now has 50 AP, is losing quite a bit off his shield. Volibear, less on the heal, right? Gnar, less AD, although we compensated Gnar. But Titans BT shouldn't be the best item all the time. There should be other things to do. I'll be honest, we kind of need to look at this item a bit more still. The relationship between it and Sterix, I'm still not particularly happy with. But for now, this is nice, and we shouldn't see, 8 to 12 Titans per lobby anymore. So hopefully this helps. Yeah. Augments, Boiling Point. This augment was broken. Mana per attack, giving everyone a Shojin was a little much. It goes down to 3. Call to Adventure, no longer offered on 3-2. Call to Adventure, you were not taking this augment on 3-2. It was a trap. This is just gone because we don't like trapping people. Everything Must Go. Sorry, this augment never should have shipped. We're taking it away. It's never coming back. This augment's dead. It deserves it. Fine Vintage. This one's tricky. I don't know. I think this augment could have been gold, could have been the other option, but we like having a fun silver. So having this be a silver augment is good. Lowering it to 4 turns just to make you pay a little bit more. We want to keep the fun of being able to choose support items and play in a cool supporty way. If you want to build, 3 Aegises or 5 Zephyrs, that's kind of fun. So trying to see if we can get it in the right spot. It is also no longer offered with Pandora's items. This was causing a lot of confusion, so that's fixed. Raid Boss. This augment was garbage on 2-1. Absolute garbage on 2-1. Not offering that anymore. Big Grab Bag. Have you ever taken this augment and gotten 3 belts? I have. It's awful. Fixing that. Can no longer give 3 of the same component. Now, to be fair, you could still get belt, cloak, but, at least it's a little bit better. Golden Remover. We added text so that it explains what it is. So if you're new to TFT and you're like, what the hell's a Golden Remover? Now you know. Cool. Some small changes real quick. Kiana gets an attack speed buff. Will it make her a carry? I don't think so, but she gets a buff. And then Teemo 3 gets to do a little bit more damage. This is a very small 5% buff to Teemo 3 only. But if you like Teemo reroll, it should be a little better. Cool. And then bugs. We fix bugs, because that's what we do. We fix bugs. Pick of the Litter can no longer yoink the unit it just gave you back to the shop. Cool. Fixed a number of trick shot interactions, especially with Ricochet. Cool. Sivir's final auto during her ability now properly benefits for increased AD. Zaya's last trick shot bounce now deals damage. That's a Zaya buff. Senna's ability no longer misses if her target dies. We talked about that. Volibear can no longer stun CC immune targets. Sweet. Udyr can no longer knock up CC immune targets. Sweet. Aurelia's carousel encounter visuals now work correctly. Cool. Trickster's Glass on Zaya or Rakan can no longer spawn an extra clone. The Trickster's Glass clone of Zaya or Rakan now always is in the same form as the original, even if they're in different rows. Great. Six and Stones is now actually disabled. Cool. Annie's model no longer persists after she dies. Storyweaver 7 Kale can no longer revive an Alawi tentacle. God, that would have been rough. Azir 3 can no longer leave permanent soldiers. Cool. This one's big. Recombobulator no longer fails to recombobulate a champion if no champion the tier higher has enough copies left. We've seen this happen a couple times where there's 2 of every 4 costs taken out of the pool, which means Recombobulator couldn't work. We fixed that. Unified Resistance VFX are now removed on combat start. Zerat Portal now keeps its placement round to round, thank God. Fine Vintage no longer transforms temporary items, sweet. Slammin' no longer grants experience from PvE rounds, Soju, you exploiter. And the Road Less Traveled no longer grants XP on PvE rounds. And there you go. That's the patch. Like I said, it's not a ton of stuff. It's not like our biggest patch, but it is a lot. There's a lot of stuff going on here. I think the 4 costs especially, that's going to be very transformative to the meta. If you're somebody who didn't like reroll, this certainly is going to change that quite a bit. But there you go. And that's it for now. Next patch. Next patch is the big artifact patch, where there will be 20 new artifacts. So stay on the lookout for that. That'll be pretty interesting as well. I don't know. I like to jokingly call it 11.25. That should be pretty fun. And obviously we'll keep an eye on the meta. Competitive seasons are starting to hit up as well. We're seeing like our first ladder snapshots across the regions. Tournaments will be kicking in. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. All right. That's going to do it for me. That's it for this patch. As always, we'll see you every 2 weeks for another patch. And there you go. Team's working hard, keeping the game fun. things are good. All right, that's going to do it for me. Until next time, take it easy.